Imagine this baseball stadium behind me filled with fans. Now imagine an armed drone filled with chemical weapons flies overhead, releasing it, killing them. It's a horrifying scenario that may not be too far-fetched after the latest warning from Homeland Security. According to the DHS, there's been an uptick in terrorist interest for using unmanned aerial systems as weapons to drop chemicals.
You can take a quadcopter, off-the-shelf unmanned aerial vehicle that you can purchase for $99 at Radio Shack or Best Buy or even on Amazon, equip a small container on it, put an automated device on side just by using a trigger that you can get for 99 cents at a hardware store, fly it over a civilian area, and thereby you have a roving chemical unmanned aerial weapon.
Greg Roman leads the Middle East Forum, a research center working to defend our country from threats in that region. Roman says ISIS already uses drones on the battlefield to drop grenades and other explosives. Now Homeland Security is also concerned about drones targeting commercial jetliners. The DHS bulletin states unmanned aircraft systems highlight sustained concern regarding threats against commercial aviation and air cargo, including explosives, poisons, or toxins. The latest threat comes just days before the holiday season, one of the busiest travel times of the year.
There is some concern regarding the regulations regarding drones, even in the private sector. First attacking commercial airlines, but then what about other government buildings? What about churches? What about people's homes? So it would not just stop at a plane.
The big picture is that Homeland Security's fight is shifting, ever adapting against ISIS, who is losing ground on the battlefield, but continues to have branches throughout the world.
A study by the Pew Research Center has predicted that Europe's Muslim population will likely double by 2050. The study projected 3 possible scenarios, one with high rates of migration, medium migration, and zero migration. The study defines Europe as the European Union plus Norway and Switzerland, where Muslims make up an average of 4.9% of the population. Pew predicts that by 2050, the population will increase to 14% under high migration and 11.2% under medium migration. However, Pew projects even if all migration into Europe were to immediately stop, the Muslim population would still increase to 7.4%. Pew says this is because Muslims on average are younger and have higher fertility rates than non-Muslim Europeans, by about 1 child more per woman.
Okay, according to the FBI hate crimes report, which was released last week, hate crimes increased by 5% from 2015 to 2016. Obviously, that's not a good thing. It's a bad thing. There were about 6,100 total hate crimes reported to law enforcement in 2016, and that's sad, right? People attacking, assaulting, hurting, killing other people based off of gender, race, religion, nationality. I think it's heartbreaking. But the mainstream media and politicos on the left, they put their heads together and they say, let's make this political. Let's try to make this about Republicans. So they post tweets like this from the Associated Press. Then they write articles like this from Vox. And they completely neglect to tell the truth. They're lying. Let's look at the facts, the numbers from the FBI. According to the FBI, of the 1,528 hate crimes motivated by religious bias, 54% of them were anti-Jewish, compared to 25% against Muslims. Did the mainstream media tell you about that? No, they didn't. Hate crimes against Jews rose by 9% from 2015 to 2016, and the media barely touched that. Then we have racially motivated crimes. According to the FBI, the fastest growing category of racially motivated hate crimes are crimes committed against white people. But God forbid the media defend a white person. If we're attacked for our white skin, are we supposed to just grin and bear it? In 2016, there were 876 anti-white hate crimes, up from 734 in 2015. That's a 19.34% increase in anti-white hate crimes. That compares to an 18.46% increase in hate crimes against Hispanic, Latino people. And interestingly enough, this is the outright lie from the mainstream media, anti-black hate crimes decreased by 3 offenses in 2016. So when the mainstream media headlines by saying hate crimes against black people and Muslims skyrocketed, is that accurate? No, it's not. It's intentionally misleading. It's like the mainstream media didn't even bother to read the FBI report. They just made up stuff that matched their own political agenda. In the real world, that's called lying.
Well, the tolerance police have a lot of power here in America, in case you haven't noticed, but they're even stronger in Canada. Just yesterday, Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau delivered an official apology to gay and transgender Canadians for past state discrimination against them. But now teachers in Durham, Ontario had to attend an inclusiveness training course for the deep breath here, LGGBDTTTIQQAAPP community, which is apparently a community. That 15-letter acronym intended to encompass all sexual minorities. It may soon be required at schools.
And then there's this. The taxpayer-funded college in California wants to convert a portion of its student computer lab into a safe space for LGBTQ and undocumented students. But those who don't identify as either are fighting back to keep their money from funding any part of the $500,000 project.
Well, the Supreme Court is hearing arguments today in a case that could redefine what free speech means. The court will hear from a Colorado baker who refused to make a wedding cake for a gay couple in 2012. Justices have already ruled that the Constitution protects same-sex marriage nationwide. Thousands of protesters on both sides are gathered outside of the Supreme Court. Our Jen Crawford has the very latest.
This case is attracting a lot of attention, and it pits a right to free speech and free religion against a right to be free from discrimination. A devout Christian baker on the one hand, and a same-sex couple who just wanted a wedding cake. Jack Phillips had been making wedding cakes for nearly 20 years when Dave Mullins, Charlie Craig, and his mother Debbie Munn walked into his Masterpiece Cake shop outside Denver.
He asked us who the cake was for, and when we said it was for us, he said he would not make a cake for a same-sex wedding.
Mullins and Craig were getting married in Massachusetts and were planning a celebration back home in Colorado.
We went in so happy and left broken.
I was embarrassed that my mom had to see me go through that. And, you know, I have to be honest, I started to break down and I cried.
I tried to respectfully apologize that I couldn't create this thing.
Phillips, who grew up drawing and painting, says his cakes are personal artistic expressions.
I serve everybody who comes in my shop. So in this case, I will gladly sell you anything in my shop. But this is just an event that I can't create a cake for.
But to Mullins and Craig, it was discrimination. They filed a complaint against Phillips and won.
What we went through was humiliating and painful and degrading, and we didn't want another loving couple to have to go through that.
But for Phillips, the ordeal was also painful.
Phone calls were coming, harassing, swearing at you, to where my wife was afraid to come into the shop at points. And just, there were tears, and it's just like, what's going on? What do we do?
Phillips stopped making wedding cakes so he wouldn't be forced to violate his beliefs.
And what if the Supreme Court rules against you?
If we have to close a business in order to stand for our faith, then that's what we'll do.
The future of restaurants is here. Robots are now serving guests at a new restaurant in Dhaka, Bangladesh after its grand opening on November 16th. This is the country's first so-called robot restaurant. China-based HZX electronic technology company supplied the technology to make the futuristic eatery a reality. The director of the restaurant says people get tired easily and using robots will ensure better customer service. He told BD News 24, quote, "Initially, robots will not take orders. They will just deliver orders to the customers. We will gradually open the options of ordering food through robots." Robotics in the culinary environment are not new. Reports by Business Insider found one robot created by Momentum Machines could cook more than 400 hamburgers an hour. In places like San Francisco, robots make food deliveries and brew coffee. Would you eat at a restaurant staffed by robots?
When Brianne Kimmel gets ready to go in the morning, cash is not in the equation.
I think the last time I went to an ATM was 2 years ago.
She streamlined her wallet to credit cards only. Cash she feels is inconvenient and dangerous.
There's a lot of times where I think if I had a lot of cash on me, I'd be a little bit anxious.
While cash is still the #1 method of payment, between 2000 and 2015, non-cash payments in the U.S. grew by almost 400%.
$338 for you.
Okay. I haven't really needed cash, to be honest. It's either my credit card or if I'm out with friends, I'll use Venmo.
Venmo, the mobile app where people can pay each other on a smartphone, now processes $2 billion a month. This year, Apple added similar payment capabilities in iMessage. These free services are so popular, 30 major banks recently launched a competing product called Zelle. Doing away with paper money has been a big boom for small businesses too, like the restaurant Sunday in Brooklyn.
The transaction at the table is quicker. Guests are looking for the cleaner, safer, easier transaction. And having a wad of cash in your pocket just isn't convenient.
But 7% of Americans do not have access to banking or credit cards. That adds up to 9 million households that operate with cash only.
When a business says we will not be accepting cash here, it also is saying we will not be accepting people who don't have smartphones here or can't afford them, and people who don't have bank accounts here. You need a line of credit. You need some technology to be able to live in a cashless society, and that leaves out a large portion of our population.